following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, how are we doing? Welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and it's a bit of a full house today. Love it. Can it get better than that? Because as you can see up top with me is Paddy Boy, and down below, a wee surprise last minute entry onto the stream with Paul D. It is beautiful to have both you guys on. We've got a massive game ahead tomorrow night. You could say it's make or break. You could say it's a crunch match. All the adjectives to put it. Either way, let's face it, the destiny of Celtic's Champions League fate is essentially within 90 minutes. And we're here to talk about that. So before we do, guys, Paddy up top first, how are we doing?
Yeah, all good, mate. Like I said before, the wife is pregnant, so it's a waiting game at the minute. Everything's all go. The day we've been scrubbing the house, getting things ready as we do. So Celtic is a very worthwhile distraction for me, mate. I'm absolutely buzzing. We'll have a few boys down to the man cave tomorrow, and we will sit and chill and watch that for a wee bit. So yeah, all good.
Absolutely love it. And yourself, Paul, we know that you've had some stuff behind the scenes to take care of. Celtic's a good distractions, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it comes at a perfect time. Going into a massive game, biggest game in Europe for a long period of time. Very optimistic. I think we're in a good place. We've obviously had a few wee bumps in the road, if you could call it that. Very minimal stuff that we've been debating on here, but we go into this full of confidence, and I think it'll be a fantastic night.
Absolutely, and we're going to get right in about it. Before we do it, just to be quick bit of housekeeping we do at start, as we say, if you're new to the channel, a warm welcome to you. Make sure before you exit, you hit the subscribe, you hit the bell notification. That way you'll get notified every time we do an upload, anytime we do a live stream. And the most important bit, it costs you absolutely nothing to subscribe and support Celtic World Order. However, if you want to support by way of donation, you can hit that membership section. It's a $1.99 donation per month. It helps put all this together because this costs us money, even though everything that we do costs you absolutely nothing. If you want to connect elsewhere, we are on X at CWPod1888. We're on that thing called Blue Sky. Paddy is the TikTok merchant, and you can catch up on Spotify. Plenty of ways for yourselves to do that. So let's get down to business, lads, because well, how we look back, obviously we had a game midweek. Both you guys were there in living colour in the flesh watching that game. I'm sure you have got some of your opinions. Some of them might be a bit controversial. I do warn there. Paddy, I'm looking at you. I think he's full of the madness. He's full of the drugs probably because it's absolutely steaming. Well, he's sure, exactly. Alcohol's a drug. Somebody once said alcohol's not a drug, it's a drink, but I'll leave that up for you to debate. So anyway, digress now. See what you do to me? Nah, we'll get a massive game. It's all about young boys of Bern. It's all about the Champions League. We find ourselves at this moment in time, we're in 21st place. There's games on tonight. That can shift around, as we know. We need to be inside that top 24 to qualify. Here's the key headlines. Celtic get the 3 points. You are pretty much guaranteed safe passage, over 90%, guaranteed to make into that next round. If you get a draw, it's still very possible. It's in the high 80s, it's about 85%. But squeaky bum time, getting into a game against Villa on the 29th, and of course, a loss. Well, that's just unthinkable, isn't it? Paddy, hit me with it. Young boys of Bern, they're languishing, they're bottom of the pile. They are the cannon fodder. 6 games in the Champions League. 6 losses, minus 19 goal difference. They are getting laid to the sword by all comers. In our current form, where people have been complaining and we've maybe missed steps in the last few games, how hard can it be?
Exactly. Listen, when we done the breakdown, when the draw first came out, this was one of the ones we looked at and went, yeah, that's a pretty much guarantee. Along with Slovan Bratislava, they were the 2 that you kind of highlighted and went, right, that's the ones for me that's 6 points guaranteed. We also played down Bruges. We thought that would have been shooting in as well, but that proved as a little bit more difficult. Going into this one on our current form, like you said, me and Paul were both at the game against Kelly there, and first half performance I thought was phenomenal. Other than we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, that was it. Other than Callum's goal, I thought we struggled with the end product, but the build-up was excellent. The passing was excellent. Going forward, it could have been 5 or 6 in the first half. So hopefully a big night.
That's the thing, isn't it, Paul? We look at this game and, as we say time and time again, you know, if we looked to Nad to say to you blindly before the draw was made and you went, here's what's going to happen, this is where Celtic are going to be, then you would have bitten both arms off me. I'd be lying here like the Black Knight out of Monty Python, because I'd have no arms. You'd bitten it right off me if I offered you that at the start. But yeah, it's funny how as we go into the campaign, the expectations change, because there's no doubt about it. We have punched above our weight at times. I'm looking at the Atalanta game, of course. I think that was a real coming of age. It really showed that we were able to find a formula. RB Leipzig maybe looks like, and so far, the bit of the outlier in terms of performances. That was just where everything absolutely clicked. And then there was a slight deflation of games against Club Brugge, which really did feel like a misstep. Even though they were organised, they were far from, being our all-flying hard team to break down. And the past two games have just felt a wee bit like that, where we probably should have made this a lot easier. Of course, if we got those points, then we could have been in the lofty and ridiculous position of talking about direct qualification. But one thing's been consistent, Paul, is we've always looked on course to do it. Have you any concerns over getting into this game? Because yes, Young Boys are the whipping boys of this tournament so far, but there's really no bad teams. They're the Swiss champions. And if we look at some of the games where we've been a wee bit domestically sticky, looking at Kelly, looking at Dundee, for example, well, they're going to be better than them, aren't they?
Aye. The games that we've had recently, in terms of what we've been debating about some performances individually, although it doesn't connect to obviously tomorrow night, but it obviously paints a picture. I think what they do is serve as great preparation, and we're going into this tomorrow night under no illusions. We do have a couple of wee things that we're looking to iron out, players that we would like, a bit more from or whatever else, and the manager's addressed that in his press conference today, I saw as well. So not going into this, we're in the mindset of, we know we're not firing on all cylinders technically. We have had a great season, but we go into this tomorrow night and I fully expect us to take it the bull by the horns. If someone had said to you after Dortmund that this would be the situation, you would have, as you say, bit both arms, legs off the lot. So I'm more than confident going into it. They have had a very, very poor run of games and performances, although they've had a break. They look like a team that are really there for the taking. And the performance against Kilmarnock the other night, what I was going to bring up with that was that we looked as if we had a wee bit more grit, a wee bit more fight about us in terms of, players like Trusty and McGregor. I've been waiting for McGregor after the past couple of wee dips in his performance level. Nobody will need to remind him about that. He'll know himself that he was a wee bit off it. But the other night, right from the first whistle, he was leaving a wee bit in, moving the ball quicker, just a lot sharper in preparation for this. So I can't wait. I'm buzzing for it.
Well, the thing is, when we look at the game, as you say, there's a wee shift. I think there was some reactions to that Kelly game where there was, of course, Derek McInnes just likes a moan. He's never beat by a good team. There's always something that was at fault. But I think that scoreline really did flatter them. And as you say, and as Paddy's touched on, we came on before, we're talking about it, really, people have been saying somebody's due a doing. What have we complained about before? I mean, we've had the wee dips of forms. It's where we've not been creating chances.
Yeah.
The difference here in that last game is we just weren't converting the chances. I think probably Nicholas Kuhn could have had a hat-trick, for example, if he taken up some better opportunities that he had. But we've been creating plenty of chances and we've just not been getting on the end of it. And it's really just about that sort of finally clicking and then all kicking together, where you could potentially, regardless of Young Boys of Bern being an elite club and all that, being the Champions League, it could be another Bratislava if all the pieces come together like we saw, because that night as well, we created continual chances and we just happened to get in the end of them. We look at the game against Kelly, we were creating them, we just weren't finishing them off. So you can understand why people are frustrated, but I think a hammering could be in the post. And again, just look at Young Boys of Bern. This is a club that are in absolute turmoil. In case you don't know, they went into the tournament as the Swiss Super League champions, so they've earned the right to be there. Things haven't panned out for them, not only in this tournament, But in the domestic, they're 9th in the league as
Right.
defending champions. 6 wins, 6 draws, 1 loss. They're -4 in goal difference. 25 in the net, 29 in their net. And of course, as we know, they're also on their 3rd manager this season. This is a team who, if you ever want to say, are they there for the taking, then yes, it is. Look at their last 5 games. They've had a wee bit of a break. Now, they've obviously tried to get their hopes up because they've played 2 absolute dog meat teams in a friendly bounce matches where they've scudded them 6-0 and 4-1 respectively. But the other Super League games in there, it's been 1 win and some draws. They are not scoring goals. They've scored 11 goals and 4 against. But bear in mind what I said, 10 were against garbage and friendlies. So, Paddy, are we wrong to be confident in it? Is this one that there could be a sting in the tail, or is it one of these rare occasions where you can really look at a European game and say, this one should be taking care of itself? And if it doesn't, then there's big questions to be answered.
Yeah, listen, 100%. As I said before, it's one of the ones that we looked at and went, yeah, that's the 3 points. And we didn't think we'd be in the situation that we're in. We really didn't anticipate to have as many points as what we had. Like you said, won this game, we've qualified. And if somebody said to you at the start of it, you're going to be playing the team that's sitting 9th in the Swiss League for a place to qualify for the latter stages of the Champions League, like you said before, Steve, you'd bite the arm off for it. It's one of the things. I'm confident going in against them. The chances that we're creating, everybody's up in their game at the right time. Like with Callum McGregor can get highlighted as much as he wants because, listen, he was the one against Kelly that did drag us into battle. Shall we say he fought for every single ball. He was pinging the ball about the park. The other 2 midfielders in there were garbage. Hatate and Engels, they were null and void in my opinion. In that game, they done nothing. So McGregor basically single-handedly ran that midfield against Kelly. And going in against young boys, if we get Callum in there, everybody else in with him, up in their game, it should be shooty in, mate. It'll be 4 or 5. You're on mute, Steve.
I know, I'm trying to be nice and give you time on that. To touch on that last game, Paddy, I want to dive into that because one of the things we're going to talk about is how we're going to set it up, who we're going to play. We've got a clean bill of health. The manager's told us as much. Bar James Forrest, everybody that you would want available is available. So there's strength and depth there. There's options. There's formation options. You know, we could do what we've done before. It won't happen, of course, but you could play Ida and Kyogo, as we've seen, to great effect. So there really should be absolutely no excuse for us getting into this game here. But I want to come back to what you say, because we won't dive into the Kelly game too much, but just mention sort of performances of certain people, because I think some had to bounce back from that game against Dundee. And definitely, for example, for me, Trusty was one of those guys. We all saw the manager after the loss of the goal in Dundee, fucking weak as piss, I believe, was it? He said that he spoke 1-to-1, man-to-man with Trusty, and I thought the guy was near enough man of the match. He was fantastic in that game, so there is some conversions of performances there. You spoke about the midfielders, right? And I find this one fascinating. You and I have had a wee ding-dong about this. We've had a disagreement, but that's fine. That's what football fandom's all about. And I find that fascinating because Hatate's been coming in for a lot of flack. You know, when he's good, he's Rio. When he's shite, he's Hatate. You know what I mean? That's the way it seems to go. But a lot of folk are saying that Hatate had a pretty good game the other day. And you have turned around and says that he didn't have it. And he's your key guy, he's your go-to. But you've also said that Aaron Engels was absolutely stinking. And I'm not having it. And I'm calling you it because, yes, he is not perfect. But he has been playing very well recently. He was taking out the team. We nursed him a wee bit, and he came back. And in my value for money, in these last 5 games, he's arguably been man of the match, 3 out those 5, and he has got 2 of them. So, Paddy, what is it with this midfield? What is the bee in your bonnet about this midfield? I agree that Cal McGregor had one of his best performances in a long time, but I didn't think he was fighting the fires himself, mate.
Oh, he was, 100%. He was fighting the fires himself in there. Callum's got 7 goals this season. Pretty much every one of them from outside the box. He's been incredible for me. Engels, I'll start off with him because for me, it was just rotten. It gave the ball away so much, and we've had the discussion, Steve, right? You can't judge a guy on his price tag and things like that. And do you know what? You can. For me, he's not a developmental player. We've paid 12 million for this guy. We've got him in. He's a big signing. I'm expecting so much for this guy. The Slovan Bratislava game, he was all right. He was good. That was probably his best performance that I've seen in a Celtic jersey. Other than that, I haven't really seen much. Most of these goals are coming for penalties. Assists-wise, it's not been magical assists. It's not like the assists you get from Nicholas Kuhn or ones that Rio's made here and there. You're getting basically basic stuff for him, and that's it. I'm expecting a lot more for a guy of his calibre, and for me, he gives the ball away too much. He doesn't fight for it. He doesn't show passion. It's as if he doesn't understand what it means to play for Celtic. And for me, I want players to be like Callum McGregor. I want them to dig in. I want them to give everything on that park, die on that park for us, because, listen, we would do it. And I want to see that for the players. And for Arnie Engels, I haven't seen it this season at all. And then I'll talk about Rio Hatate as well. Rio Hatate is the guy that I sing his praises. I back him up against everybody. And do you know what? Yeah, Rio's been off the boil. He's been absolutely garbage as well. And he's trying the passes and he's doing things. But then again, he's another one of these guys. When he loses the ball, he's not tracking back. He's not fighting for that place. Bernardo comes on and he's in and he's sticking to people and he's chasing down and he's closing people down and he's kicking at people's heels. And that's what you want to see. So for me, Engels and Hatate just need to be dropped. They need to be put aside and say, listen, fight for your place, boys. Because for me, they're not fighting. They're really not doing enough for me.
Interesting. I'm sure people will have a view of an opinion on that. But what about yourself? Because again, you were there, Paul. What was your reading? And the reason I'm talking about that is that's not here to pile on players. It's just one of the things that we're going to be discussing, of course, will be who plays against young boys. And it's a European game. We're playing against a team who are bottom of the pile, and all the things that Paddy's turned around and says that he's looking for in players. I agree, sometimes you do need that, but we've also found that the European style and all that jazz, sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes you just need to be a baller and have the, ball at your feet and do things. Did you see anything from either one of those two players in the game against Kelly or anybody else, performance-wise, is that you either liked or disliked, it would raise some eyebrows and throw a spanner in the works for how we set ourselves up, Paul, get into this young boys game?
As I was hinting about earlier on, Trusty has to start tomorrow night. He looked very, very physical, good with the ball, reading of the game, seems to be improving. I thought when he first came in, there was a wee bit of a lull in terms of how he was reading the game, but he's just getting used to the new team that he's in with Carter Vickers. My main takeaway, and I have been critical of him with Rio, was that there was a couple of times, a good few times in the game against Kilmarnock, where he seemed to drop a bit deeper and put the head up and find long passes and long balls. That, for me, is something that's been missing from Rio's game for a long, long time. There's a lot of time where the head's down and he just wants to play the square. But he was going forward, and I know exactly where Paddy's coming from. He's got the ability, and it's this whole inconsistency thing. I predict tomorrow night that he'll stick with Hatate, and I think he'll stick with Engels. And I know that's not what you want to hear, Paddy, but I think tomorrow night could be a coming of age for Engels. It's all there for him. It's there for him to just go on and take it on. And I think Hatate, from what he showed against Kilmarnock, seems to be back in the mood. But we could be surprised. We just don't know. But I would go with the same team. I think it'll be Kuhn, Maeda, Kyogo up front, same midfield and the same defence, and Schmeichel. Schmeichel has to work on his distribution at times. That's been a wee bit of an issue. I don't think he'll get away with some of the throwouts. And
that's one of the things that he's been good at. That's the one thing we sang his praise about. Getting the ball down, whether it's his foot, good range of passing, good distribution, whether it's by throw or by kick. And he's been a wee sort of, like, we can give him away, folk away with that. Keep us on mental.
I agree with what Andy's saying there in the chat. And I can see exactly where Paddy's coming from. There was a couple of times where people were exasperated the other night. Engels, the ball was coming to him and he's no looking up, and it is inexperienced, but he should have the experience to know when your man's right beside you, and he was just caught cold with the ball at his feet and he's no seeing things run about him. But I'm willing to give him the the benefit of the doubt, but I can totally see where Paddy's coming from. And I just hope Rio can get back to what he's been producing.
Is he worth 12 million?
Well,
that's a big discussion, I know.
So, and here's the thing, to come in and just dive into this conversation of players and quality, right? I think I've sort of recalibrated my outlook and my mindset on certain players. Now, we come on here at times and it can be quite reactionary. And as we always say, we give opinions based on what we've just seen with our eyes on, whatever it is, 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 75, whatever that player's done. We will give our unfiltered, honest opinion based on what we saw in that game. Now, they could have been fantastic the past 3, 4, 5, 6 games and just had an absolute stinker. There's nothing wrong with calling that out. There's nothing wrong with taking isolation and chatting about what you saw. So that's fine. That will happen time and time again, over and over throughout the course of the season, no matter what tournament, cup, league, whatever we're playing in. In terms of Arne Engels, for me, I've, as I say, been quite honest at times. There was a point where I was disappointed, looking for a lot more. But I've recalibrated it and I've came back to the thing where I acknowledged that, see, at Celtic, no player is the finished article. And every single player, no matter whether you're Celtic, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, you're not void from being up for any level of criticism. But Celtic's players, and it's not to belittle them or, sell them short. There's a reason a lot of players are at Celtic, and it's because they don't have that extra, let's just say, 30% in their game. Now, I'm not saying we don't have the potential to get elite players or to buy elite players or unearth elite players, but essentially, once they fill that 30%, that's when they move on. So you will get another Nakamura, you might get another Larson, but if they are able to fulfill that potential, they are off. Enjoy them 1 season, 2 seasons, whatever it may well be. They then might not go on and reach that potential and fulfill it, but that's what I'm trying to get at here. The mistakes that we see in players, that's why they're at Celtic. Arne Engels, is he worth 12 million? Well, again, a player's value is only worth what a team are willing to pay for him. I do believe when you look at his trajectory, where he's came from, highly thought of Belgian football, highly thought of in Germany. He has been getting into the national setup. There's a lot of potential there, and that's what you're buying. You are buying potential. That's essentially it. You're buying potential at an early stage. Did we pay maybe a wee bit over the odds? Perhaps. Very much so, I agree with that when it comes to Adam Ida. I think we paid well over the odds. But again, the fees I'm comfortable with. I have no problem with them. Celtic can afford it. Celtic should be paying that because that's what you've got to do if you want to get these elite players. I've no doubt in my mind that Arne Engels is going to kick on, mate. You asked me before we came on, what has he done? What has he done? I pointed you his goals and assists, and then you say most of them are penalties. Mm-hmm. I can flip that and say, at least he's scoring them, because when was the last time we had a penalty taker that you could set your watch by? There's that. The amount of times that Celtic have scored, albeit very small, from direct corners off of one of his free kicks, probably better than the past couple of seasons. And then there's the assists. So there's a lot of moving parts. He's a midfielder. He plays in a very, very busy position. There's so many moving parts to a midfielder's game. Taking in the ball, holding the ball, looking around, who's behind me, who's in front of me, play the short pass, play the short pass, the long pass, through ball, find the run, tackle, break up the play, hundreds, game management. So you're never going to be perfect at that from the off, particularly as a young guy coming in a different team with a lot more attack-minded, as from an Augsburg, backs to the wall, different way of playing. So I think, personally, you need to give him those allowances. We then talk about that other midfielder you said, Hatate. The reason I am not going to give him quite those allowances is because he's been at Celtic now for over 3 seasons. So the fact that he's still making those mistakes, in my opinion, is unforgivable. And as I says before, unfashionable. I think he's a guy who has reached his maximum. That is as good as Rio Hatate is ever going to be at Celtic, whereas Arne Engels, I think, will eclipse him.
I hope so. Listen, I'm willing to be proven wrong here, and like Paul says, listen, see if Arne Engels comes out tomorrow and has an absolute fucking worldie. Nobody is going to be happier than me. Trust me. right, I'm a Celtic fan at the end of the day. I want what's best for these guys. I want them to go out there and prove us wrong and do what they're getting paid to do. I just haven't seen enough from them, and that's the difference. I hope everybody's right in these comments here. Do you know what? I hope he does. See if he comes out and he gets sold for 30 million in a couple of years. Brilliant. Excellent. That's brilliant, because that means he's done well for Celtic. He's helped us progress. But I've not seen enough from him this year to justify his 12 million, never mind selling him for 30 million. And that's what I'm looking for. Same with Adam Ida, you commented on him. Ida couldn't trap a bag of sand. He was garbage. His second touch was a tackle every time. When he did get a bit of space, he just fluffed his lines completely. And you're relying on Callum McGregor to score for 30 yards in certain games of the season, and Diaz Maeda using his pace to get in behind. And these are things that we shouldn't have to rely on. But we are relying on them because incompetencies for players that we've went out and spent copious amounts of cash on. Mm-hmm. And listen, I want to be proven wrong. I really, really do. I want to see Arnie Engels come out tomorrow and score a hat-trick and turn round and just his two fingers.
What's that, Paul?
I genuinely think tomorrow is set up for Engels. I genuinely think the way things have been, the trajectory that he's on, it is. And I hope I'm right. I'm very rarely ever right. But
mate, one of the things that you mentioned was defensive side. Now we're mentioning midfielders. We just sort of went down a wee rabbit hole there talking about midfielders, right? But we look at it, and one of the concerns, if you want to call it that, is the amount of goals that Celtic have been sort of shipping lately. You know, we can look at the games against Rangers, of course. We can look at Kelly. We can look at Dundee, and it's kind of weird because at the front end of the season, we were so resolute defensively, really, really strong, looking fantastic. Very little, and then it just seems in recent games we're playing well, we're creating loads of chances, and some of the scores belie the effort that we've put in. But if you have any concerns over, because that's what Snitch is saying, we need to shore up the defence. Now, regardless of what I've said about young boys, they've scored 10 goals, right? 11 in the last 5, 10 being against absolute plankton in friendly games, right? There's no doubt when I look across their team, and we'll mention some of them. One of them that you'll know, big guy plays up front, Cedric Heaton used to play at Rangers. Now, no matter what you think of him, if you remember when he signed for Rangers coming over, his goal tally as a striker was fantastic. It was really, really good. But you're actually looking going, wow, this guy's good at return here. He's one of their main strikers, 8 goals and 4 assists this season. They've got multiple players that have singled out. They've got their secondary striker, 6 goals, 1 assist. They've got 2 right wingers that between them have got 14 goals and 11 assists. And of course, one of their other key midfielders is 7 and 7. So they do have firepower. And again, this comes back to it. Are we counting our chickens, Paul? Because young boys of Bern are going to be a cut above Dundee. No doubt. 100% cut above Dundee, cut above Kelly. Are they going to be the same standard or better than Rangers? Perhaps. But one thing that's happened to us recently is we have been weak defensively. No doubt about it. And these teams, albeit that they're not doing well, they'll have a wee bit more quality in the tank that if they get those chances, theoretically, they should punish you. Do you have any worries about the sort of amount of goals that we've been conceding, Paul?
I have been a wee bit worried, if you can put it, worried. We've been getting away with it, effectively. We've been getting away with it. The goals that we've leaked against, domestic opposition, and we've still been able to get through it, bar 1 or 2 results where we've dropped, the occasional point. I think the issue stems from the fact that this year we've had a very mixed bag at the back in terms of Scales coming in, Trusty coming in, Carter Vickers being injured. We haven't had a set back 4, which I think every team should have if it can be achieved. But we have been chopping and changing, and that leads to this kind of inconsistencies at times. Players like to know who's beside them. I think the best partnership, looking at it from my own point of view, as much as I think Scales has been good enough at times when he's come in, he's made errors, but I think the Trusty and Carter Vickers combination will be the best going forward. But we still need another addition. I think there's still, with the outgoings and the deadwood getting cleared out, I still think we need another centre half to come in, somebody with experience, no another project or another kind of lower league centre half. I think made proven experience to come in there and help out, and somebody that can read the game really well. I don't have many concerns defensively, but tomorrow night, I don't know much about. It depends how they shape up. If they start pulling us about the place, you could see a wee bit of a nervy back four. But I think overall we'll be able to cope with it.
Did you have any concerns about that? But the term that Derek McInnes, and I know Derek McInnes is a Yahoo and he talks nonsense, right? The term that he said was we were shook. And I don't know if I'd go as far as you guys were there, you saw it with your eyes. I don't know if I'd go as far to say that we were necessarily shook, where we were in a real wobble and it didn't look like we were going to recover. But there was no doubt there was a wee lull where Kelly sort of got ourselves into it a bit. And we saw that, we absolutely saw that against Dundee. There was no doubt about it. We were shook in that game. And again, this is against lower quality opposition, Paddy. In terms of that, we need to shore it up. I'm talking, and Paul's talking, about the manager keeping the faith in Aaron Engels. I don't think that he done particularly that much wrong that I would be saying drop him, unlike yourself, of course, but otherwise tell to their opinions, as we said. One thing he did do was he showed trust and belief in Austin Trusty, because let's face it, he had an absolute minger. He had a minger against Rangers. He collapsed. He was pulled out. Scales came in. He got that wee sort of bit of trust and played. He then had his stinker and didn't get pulled out and eventually get removed. He brings in Trusty. He's one good game. He's a rotter against Dundee. Then he sticks him back in the next game. Paul's singing the praises. Keep him in there. Is it about showing trust? Does Trusty get trusted?
Well, yeah, I think he does. When you look at the opposite side of it as well, I think Liam Scales gives you a better option going forward than what Trusty does. Trusty's probably the better defender. Let's say that. But going forward, you see more of a movement in Celtic when Liam Scales is on. He's got a better passing accuracy. He gives you more in the opposition box. You're more likely to get a goal out of Liam Scales than you're out of Austin Trusty or Carter Vickers. I think he offers you more in the opposition box. But for the manager to turn around and put his faith in Trusty, shall we say, I think it's decent enough. And if Brendan trusts him, we've got to trust him. It's as simple as that. So he is a better defender than Liam Scales, but he's not a better all-round player than Liam Scales for me. So I think he's the best option going into a European game, because like against Atalanta, that was probably the best game I've seen Trusty play. In that game, it was absolutely incredible. They were trying to ping the balls into the box and what was a 30, 40 crosses or something in towards the 6-yard box, and Trusty probably dealt with 3/4 of them. And watching a little bit of young boys, I was watching a couple of games back, got highlights and stuff of a few of their games, and they're very similar. They want to try and ping the balls into the box. They don't play through the middle a lot, so they're going to be putting lump balls in, playing the odd chaos ball, like we call it, Steve-O, like we're used to seeing for the Rangers, lump balls up the top towards the striker and stuff. So listen, if you're going to have somebody in there to deal with that, it's going to be Austin Trusty, because he was a standout against Kilmarnock as well. So for me, he's got to be in there. He's got to start.
See if I could just come in. I think what we've had the issue with this season in this squad has been inconsistency. That's been the story in every position for different centre halves, occasionally midfielders, which we've discussed in several videos, inconsistencies of different players, and the whole blowing hot and cold with strikers as well. It's been inconsistent, but we've been getting away with it. These things will iron themselves out over the period of time.
See, again, come back to the defence thing, because this is going to be important. We have been shutting some goals. As I keep saying, and I'll not bore you saying it, young boys, on paper at least, shouldn't, and I hate that. I hate getting into these games like that, but they shouldn't pose that much of an issue. But we do need to be resolute defensive. I just feel that I want consistency. That's the word that you've used. Not just consistency in terms of performances. I want consistency of selection of the team.
Yeah.
And at times that's chopped and changed. And sometimes you have just got to knuckle down and let a guy play and accept there's going to be up and downs. As I keep saying about the 70%, that's, to me, that's why guys are, and you know, Street Shitter, great name by the way, he's said about Taylor. Taylor's a guy that's much maligned, right?
Yes.
But what I would say about Taylor is Taylor offers you consistency. Now, some folk will jump on and go, yeah, consistently shite. But for me, come back to my 70% chat, for me, Taylor is 70% consistent right now. He hasn't had great options to really push him for that starting berth. Admittedly, he hasn't, but he has been able to outshine and outstay them all simply because, for all his faults, he does offer a level of consistency. 70% of the time, he is not, I wouldn't say flawless, but very effective. Whether it's coming into midfield to give you that extra man, create that overload, doing the inverted, yes, he'll be out of position, etc. But in terms of consistency, he will put an effort, he'll run himself into the ground, might not be blessed with brilliant talent, but similar to Scales, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
His 30% is the hospital pass, the terrible position. That's the bits that folk remember. It's just unfortunate. That's the bits that folk remember.
Yeah.
And again, when we discuss our players, I'm just throwing it out there. Let's talk about Hatate. His 30% is a world of a pass, a brilliant strike, whatever it may well be. But then he's 60% when he's losing the ball every 2 seconds and stuff like that. So it's in balance. It's in balance. People always remember that bit, and it's a big, massive stick to smash you around the head with. What I want to see is consistency of team selection. Taylor, for me, it's got to be Taylor, right? It's got to be Taylor because Valle is just hundreds of question marks over it. Have we seen anything? It looks better attacking. I think it looks better defensively. No, I don't. But make a choice. Trust it or Carter Vickers. Johnson, consistency for him, it's dropped a wee bit recently for me.
He's looked a wee bit.
Been really up and down. Up and down. But
I think the issue with Johnson's been because Nicholas Kuhn was out as well. The chemistry between Johnson and Nicholas Kuhn's been outstanding because obviously they've got this sort of telepathy. When Johnson passes, Kuhn, he knows exactly where he is and he puts the ball through to him. And it gives options for Kuhn to cut inside as well. And that option, like I'd love to have two wingers, two defenders at a right back and a left back, very similar to the way Johnson plays. But we're not going to get that because Greg Taylor's in this, like you say, Steve, an inverted role where he's having to come into the middle of the park and make it like a 4-5-1 at some points when the players drop in there and he's in helping do other things and then he's getting caught out of position. I'd love to have a left back in there who does the things that Johnson does and just basically stays there, does the defensive work, and when we have the ball, overloads the attack. But
see in terms of the left back, the left back always seems to be the thing that comes in it, right? Whether it's left centre half and or left back, it's always, no matter what, it's always been the left hand side that's been our somewhat Achilles heel. And as San Fran's saying there, Maeda's always there to sort of bail out folk, and we're blessed for having that.
Right.
We talk about what this fixture could mean, right? Of course, it's a chapter, says story, but it's the story of the group stage, so we want to finish that part of it, but yeah, it is part of a larger story. There's a chapter, if you will, in the Champions League. However, there's many permutations of what could happen for this. We talk about that left back position. We've also the rumours, we've also expected, dare I say his name, Kieran Tierney, right? If Celtic win tomorrow, you would be shocked if Kieran Tierney wasn't unveiled, or whether it was pre-contact or coming in the door by the turn of the week.
Yeah.
Like that for me, that's where we're at with this. So, it just shows you we want to try and make improvements. There's a lot hinging on this game. But one thing, coming back to the consistency, who plays best at that left centre half? Is it Trusty? Is it Scales? You've gave both reasons for and against, but I just think that we are forgetting Carter Vickers is undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best defender at Celtic, the best defender in the Scottish League, right? But he's looking a wee bit rough around the edges depending on who he's playing against. That's where we need the consistency for, because his team's getting affected as well.
It's a strange season in that regard, and albeit this is not moaning and groaning, it's just it has been an inconsistent season in terms of individual players in various positions that are all either chopping and changing, injuries will come in, managers picking different people, and the result is what we've seen, where players have not had the time to actually, I know we're far into the season now, but there is that argument where players have still somehow, at this stage of the season, still getting to know the players run about them, because there has been a hell of a lot of chopping and changing. But I fully expect that will calm down. That will calm down. The new arrivals will come in and bolster at least 3 positions: centre back, wings, and up front. And I hope that happens very soon.
Do you think what I was saying there? Have you seen a bit of a shift in Carter Vickers? Because again, we're talking about losing goals recently. Now, for me, it's just been it's been shakiness. It's like an unsteadiness. It's been a bit of chopping and changing. But Carter Vickers, to me, looks a wee bit out of sorts, and I don't think that the manager's helping it by Scales. It's trusty. It's Scales. It's trusty. You just pick one and let it settle. Who does he look better, in your opinion, Paul, alongside? And or is there an option? Is it, he looks better? We look better in a European game with X in over Y.
Because we've had this opportunity for various parts of the season where different players have been coming in, and I know what Paddy's saying. There's the marauding runs of Scales going up the park with the ball with the head up, and he looks like a defensive midfielder at times. He's running about and he's got the ball and he seems very confident, trotting away with the ball at the defence. It's getting back. He's been caught out a few times. For me, it's got to bolster with Trusty and Carter Vickers. I think that is your best selection in terms of physicality and reading the game. And I know exactly, I've got a lot of time for Liam Scales, and they've all been in this situation where they have made individual errors and been out the team, been injured. It's just one of those ones. But I think it'll all be ironed out soon.
The manager's talking about the importance for us to show respect, and as Snitch is saying, we can't underestimate it. It can put at our peril. The manager of these press conference today, and he very much echoes, as he does with every team, show them respect. They're there for a reason. There's no bad teams in the Champions League, so we get that. Very, very important. We spoke about getting on our game, doing our own thing, and things should cut together. I think that the game against Kelly was an example that things are going the right direction. The goal that we lose, right, okay. Aye, right, that is what it is, right? But we sat and I'm just sort of thinking to myself, right, we need to get ourselves together and make it click. We need to start scoring goals. We've been doing that quite recently. I want to just bring in, before we move on to general chatting, is about the Ida, because you keep mentioning him, Paddy, right? Adam Ida, is this a game for him? Is this a game for him to get those goals, to turn a corner against what should be, I say should be, and I hate saying it, but what has been cannon fodder? With the amount of chances that are going to get smashed into that box that we should be creating, is it an Adam Ida game? Is this the one that would need to pick him up?
I don't think he's done enough to warrant a start, if I'm being completely honest. Kyogo has to start in there for me. Adam Ida, listen, I would love him to start in there and to bang in a couple of goals or do something, because like you said, it would boost his confidence. I think he's a guy who at this current moment in time is severely lacking confidence. I think he's maybe caught a glimpse of social media and seen what the fan base are thinking, and he is a fan as well. He's one of these guys, and could you imagine what it'd be like when one of us get a chance to play for Celtic, and you're up there and you have 9 games and you have absolute sniders, and you're a striker and you don't score in 9 games, and everybody's calling you out saying, he's crap, he's this, he can't do this, he can't do that, blah blah. It's going to get you down. You're going to need a bit of a confidence boost. And listen, I love the guy to get it, because I think near the end of last season, before we signed him, he showed these moments. You look back at that Kilmarnock game before the end of the season, when he banged in the 2 goals on the shitey away park at Rugby Park. Do you know what I mean? He had a blinder there. He was absolutely brilliant. And that was the best I had seen from him. That was probably the best performance I've seen for Adam Ida. Then he got into the cup final and he he scores the goal to win the cup as well. So he's not done enough, and he's one of these guys, and I keep saying it about Engels as well. He's got the price tag. Is that weighing them down? Does Engels know he's worth? We've put this 12 million on him. Is he trying to do a bit much for that? Has Ida got the £9 million price tag on him, and is he trying to do a bit much as well? And I think he needs a couple of goals to get the confidence. Is this the game for it? No, for me, because I want to win it. I don't want to hinge him coming onto a bit of a game. I want to go in there and I want to demolish these this team, I want to basically put them to the sword early,
Yeah.
and I think Kyogo's the man for that.
I mean, Paul, do you share that sentiment? Because let's have a look. Our last game's going to be against Villa. Now, just had a wee look at the standings there. Villa find herself on 13 points, sitting in 7th.
Wow.
So the reality is that game against us, their top 8 aspirations and direct qualification, they have to beat Celtic. That's the way it's going to be.
Battle of
does
Britain.
that put an extra bit of edge on this game tomorrow for us, where it now all of a sudden is must win? Because not to sell yourself short and admit defeat before the ball's even being kicked. But again, we looked at it at the start when we got the draw and we say, right, let's hope it's done and dusted by the time we play Villa, because on a day away, you're going to be looking at Villa, aren't you? If you're being honest, if you search yourself, take off the specs, take off the passion, we all bleed green, and we'll always want our team to win, but you wouldn't want to get into the game, last game on the 29th against Villa, looking for a win, let alone a point. And that's a team that will want to get through. They'll want to go to that instant next round, not have to play the other 2 games or whatever it is they're going to have to play the next 2 games. So does that add extra pressure, and does that just make the team selection dilemma, if you will, not even a dilemma? It's like, no, nobody, you don't give chances to prove yourself in a game like this.
A wee bit. I think just going back to what Paddy was saying, the situation with Engels and with Ida is probably the weight of the jersey. They're 2 players that probably have not ever had to deal with this expectation of winning every game.
Yeah.
And it looks as if that's what's inside their heads. And it is obviously a factor, as much as they're professional footballers. Coming from Norwich and the team, I forgot the name of them, that Engels played with before, they probably didn't have that same absolute 100%, fans are, getting frustrated in the stadium. You can hear a bad pass and there's people, the reactionary kind of style of the way we support and the way, the club, we've got into that situation where if there's a couple of bad passes, people are, frantically murmuring and stuff like that. They've probably never played or experienced that kind of pressure, and that's what we're seeing. Going into the Villa game, I mean, taking each game at a time, we've obviously got this one tomorrow night, which I honestly think will be fine. What will be in the back of Rodgers' mind, I'm thinking, when he goes down to Villa with us, he'll be wanting to make a statement about coming back up here and then returning in a European tie, whether it's done or not. If it is still all to play for, he will really want to go down there and make an impression and have hopefully the best result that we can. Obviously tomorrow night, but if it is laid out that way that we have to go down there and put on a performance, he'll really relish that, I think.
See, in terms of this game, son, I want to move on to performances, players. We've had our wee opinion, maybe a wee moan, maybe a compliment to some of the players. I think we roughly know how we're going to shape up. It's great to see that we've got Maeda back, we've got Kuhn back. I thought, as I say, he's probably could have had a hat-trick in that game there. Really, really sharp. That's the energy we want. McGregor lifting it up. The debate's going to be who plays alongside him. We're not going to flog that horse, but is it going to be Engels? Is it going to be Hatate? Is it going to be Bernardo? What's the combination there? And, well, of course, the back line, we want consistency there. I think up front, for my taking, it's got to be Kyogo. It really has. I think that Ida, his record recently has been extremely poor. I don't think he's doing it. I think when I was praising and defending your criticism of Engels, Paddy, the flip side I can say is there's not as many working parts to a striker's game.
Yeah.
A midfielder, I can give allowances because it's such a complex game. Now, look, I'm amateur footballer 100%, but I know what it's like. I've been a central midfielder. It is a nightmare. There's so much to take care of, but I've also played forward. When you play forward, yes, there's different types of strikers, but your job is to put the ball into the net. That is what you're always going to be done. There's less for him to think about other than get on the end of it, attack the ball, and if you're going to make connection with it, at least work the goalkeeper. It's in the net or you force a save, and he just hasn't been done that. So for me, tomorrow isn't the time to show faith in Adam Ida and just put him in. Bring him on later on if you need to. Bring him on if we're winning. Don't start him. But as much as it's going to be important for our team to turn up and our tactics to work, one thing that we're maybe forgetting, and you mentioned it, the murmurs and that, is going to be the atmosphere in the stands. Because for me, I was at the Bruges game and I thought that the atmosphere was a wee bit muted. It was a bit peculiar in that game. I think that we as a fan base there, our support, didn't maybe give as much energy to the players that we would normally on a Champions League night. Of course, you had that early rapturous noise and it sort of died off. It became a bit subdued, and we've noticed that recently. And that brings me on to a certain thing that you've seen where the North Curve, the Green Brigade, whatever you want, put out the flyers. They put out the flyers essentially addressing the support and perhaps maybe voicing a level of not necessarily disdain, but they weren't too enamoured with the atmosphere at the Celtic matches as of late. I don't know if you guys saw it. It wasn't a statement, it was flyers and they were left out, and it was just general stuff about, get off your fucking phone, show a bit of support, contribute, make the noise, support this team, and another call for the Celtic end. This is the way it needs to be. This is going to make a difference. So there's no doubt that everybody needs to take part. They need to do their bit to make the noise, create the atmosphere, and push the team on. What's your thoughts? Start with yourself, Paul. What did you think of the Green Brigade thing? I think for me, I think they've got a good point in terms of the atmosphere has been flat and it is going to be detrimental to
They're obviously doing their bit. You've got the fan sections in the both corners there, the boys and the Green Brigade, and the sound and the noise and the drums and all that. Being a drummer, I love it. I could listen to that all day. To some people, it might be seen as a nuisance. I think there's been a bit of a sea change in fan behaviour from a while ago, say 10, 15 years ago, to now, when you've got the ultras and you've got the sound. I think some fans just think, well, sit in my hands and just clap occasionally and, cheer if there's a goal. That mentality probably is indicative of the game as a whole nowadays. You see it in that Premiership. Fantastic stadiums packed to the rafters and you can hear a pin drop. It's a sad indictment. I think it's just what it is now. But to go back to they've got every right to voice, what they expect to be a bit more from the fans. And you would like to think the fans as a whole would take that on. But I think some people are just in a reliance now that they've got this, fan base at one side and the other that create the noise and they don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be me. I like to go to the games and, get involved as much as I can with the games that I get to. But it just seems to be it's a generational thing. I don't know, but you'd like to think that in a European night, you shouldn't have to worry about any of that,
Do you share any thoughts on that, Paddy? I read the flyer and I thought, to me, as I say, like with the Green Brigade, they're always going to be polarising. I'm not anti-Green Brigade. I'm not massively pro-Green Brigade. I'm very much neutral Green Brigade. I appreciate the fantastic tifos. There's no doubt they create a fantastic atmosphere. I'm a big fan of all the charitable work they do. But at the same time, I'll always look at some of the problems that they may cause. So I'm very much neutral. I'm neither for or against. I appreciate the good. I will call out the bad. I'm not invested. I've no skin in the game, but I do agree to an extent with what they do, that we can't always depend on these guys or the boys at the other end to create that atmosphere. But at the same time, I thought that the flyer was, when I read through it, the verbiage and the way that it was put together, I thought that it comes back to when we had the big chat about the Celtic end, and I says, I don't think they've any chance of getting the Celtic end up and off the ground. And it's just simply based on historical or whatever behavioural divides and that block between the powers upstairs and the club. There needs to be a middle ground and need to find a way to get around the table and have a better relationship if that's ever going to succeed. Side note, but I also felt that it read like, I wouldn't say patronising, but it was a bit like kind of telling folk how to support. Now, I'm with Paul. I go to a game, I'm jump about, making noise, I'll sing, I'll be vocal. and I'm very much involved. I don't sit in my hands. I'm not sitting on my phone or any garbage like that. I'm dialed into the game. But it very much, and I get this same, I just felt as if they were talking at you rather than appealing to you. And I just felt it was a bit of strange, the timing of it before this.
Listen, I get it. What they give is incredible. Listen, you've been to some games and the atmosphere they create is absolutely outstanding. And I get that. That's brilliant. Like you said, you highlighted there as well, the charitable work they do. Excellent. They do come with a lot of problems as well, and we have highlighted them before.
All fan groups do. That's the reality of it. You know,
do. That's it. Everybody's got these ultras, and they all come with their good points and their bad points. And listen, the GB, for all that they are, I think provide a hell of a lot. I've seen that comment there as well about the flyer being carefully worded not to really offend anyone. I think when a certain part of the fan base is telling you how to support your club, there's only so many ways you can take that. Somebody's going to go, yeah, either right, we need to sing up a wee bit, blah, blah. You've been to a few games with me, Steve. I'm of that persuasion as well. I'll stand there and I will sing at the top of my voice and I'll voice my opinion, whether other people around about me like it or not. Now, the Kilmarnock game there, myself and Joe were at, we were sitting in the main stand. The posh seats, may it be, we were sitting with...
On sandwiches.
Yes, pretty much, mate. We were sitting there with our wee sannies and our pies and getting our wee beers and all that, and listen, it was lovely, absolutely beautiful. But you do see the change in there. I want to be where everybody's singing, and I want to be where the noise is. You don't have it in that section of the support, and are they too good for it? Is that what it is? Are these the people that pay for the big seats and they don't want to sit there and sing the songs because people beside them will judge? I want to be in there singing. European nights, like you've said it before, you go to Celtic Park on a European night, the team's walking out the tunnel, the away team are shiting themselves. Do you know what I mean? They're walking out there looking about going, oh my God, what have we just walked into? And that's what I want Celtic Park to be like every single game. I want every team to walk out that tunnel and think, oh, where are we? What have we done? What have we come into here? Because that's what Celtic Park was built for. It was built as an absolute cauldron. And it was like, Lenny, I'm going to bring back the thunder. And it did. It brought back that noise to Celtic Park. And that's what it brings. The GB and the Ultras and everybody run about that. They create an atmosphere that intimidates teams coming to Celtic Park. And that's what the GB, I think, are trying to get to. I think they know how pivotal this game is against young boys. And they want to create that atmosphere. They want young boys to walk out that tunnel and straight away go, oh, we don't deserve to be here. And I think if we do create that atmosphere, and I'm sure we will, you'll see that when they're panning down the line, when the Champions League music's getting drowned out with the screaming, you'll see the young boys' faces and they'll just be looking about. Like young boys, they'll be like, oh, what a deer caught in the headlights. And straight away, that's when you know you've got them.
Yeah. I mean, that is true. That is true. Some of the best nights are undoubtedly European nights under the lights and all that, as they say. But I think tomorrow it's massive. I think, as you says, and as some people are saying, commenting that, with regards to flyers and opinions and fans groups putting out one thing, you're always going to split it into it. When you're speaking to folk that are fully invested in the idea and are 100% backers, you're already trying to preach to the choir, so to speak. They know, they're on board. You don't need to tell them, they're on board with them. So it's just like, who's this pitched that? And then, as you say, the others that are like, I'm not listening to the wee scallies, I'm not listening, who the fuck are they to tell me to? So it's always going to be that way. But for me, there's no doubt. I just think that I just thought it was a bit of a peculiar one. I don't think it really needed it. I think it had some really good points. I really did it, but I just felt that there's certain things that I expect to take care of themselves. And a game where everything is on the line, I would have just preferred the message to just be, we don't need to tell you how to suck eggs. But this game is pretty much at this moment is all or potentially nothing here. Let's ensure that we get behind that. That's what I had to say.
I remember European games years ago. Nakamura's free kick against Man U, the Juventus, Chris Sutton top corner. There wasn't any concerns back then about crowd, participation. The place was rocking from start to finish, and that was before we did any ultras. So it just shows you,
Do you think it's a as you say, it's a generational thing. Do you think we got to that stage where it was new and it was all, what's this? This is brilliant. And then it just became a case of maybe laziness among some of the fan base where it's like, I don't need to make any noise. I can just crack on with watching the football rather than vocalising.
There's been European games, and then after every big European game, my YouTube is flooded with these vloggers that appear from anywhere from abroad that managed to get tickets for the top European games.
And sorry, jump in. I can understand why they're mentioning things like this. Yeah. I hate that tourism shit where you've got guys like that full Thogden sitting there. Oh,
to get tickets.
Like, bolt, mate. Bolt, so I can understand that there is an element of football tourism, and there'll be a lot of fans that will get, day tickets, so to speak, on a Sperry, and they'll maybe go down and they'll want to stand around the GB or the boys, and they'll want to get the camera out and, I'm in here. I get that, so I can understand why they'd be calling that out. I can see that.
On that point, if there's a spare ticket going for tomorrow night, I'll quite happily participate in everything, and I'll take the ticket. I'll vlog it.
His camera out, annoying folk.
Yep.
Nah, like, to finish up and wrap things up, I think this game for me, I don't have any worries about it. And as much as I like the sound of that, I'm also a bit slightly uncomfortable with that. Because I said that against Zagreb. I said that against Club Brugge. Now, the argument will always be maybe, particularly Club Brugge, they stopped us playing our game. That just felt strangely flat. I have no doubt in my mind, Dinamo Zagreb was one of the biggest missteps. Look, if we win tomorrow, we go through. We don't care. It's a minor footnote on the Champions League journey where we go, so what? We get through. But I don't want these wee missteps to be something that come back and bite us in the arse. I don't want it to be squeaky bum time. It is win at all costs, as James is saying in there. We need to turn up. We need to be on it for the start. We need, this is the culmination of all these chances that we're generating. It needs to click. I'll take 1-0. I will take 1-0. I don't care. But tomorrow is must win. I think win tomorrow. I think it shoots us forward again in confidence, and I think you'll start to see performances coming domestically as well, just with that wee bit of pressure off and knowing, right, we are now through to the next round of the Champions League. We can call ourselves a proper Champions League team because we've qualified. I think that'll breed all sorts of confidence through the players, but I also think as well it will bring with it an urgency in the transfer market between now and that deadline coming up.
Yes, listen, I agree with you as well. I think tomorrow night is absolutely pivotal. I'll go out straight away. I'll get my prediction and stuff in there. I will say straight away that I think Bernardo will start ahead of Engels.
Right.
I think that will probably be the only change. I think it will be Trusty, Carter Vickers, Johnson and Taylor, Hatate, McGregor, and I think probably Bernardo, then Kun Kyogo and Maeda up front. Prediction-wise, I reckon if we go out and we play the way we can play, then it'll be my good old 4-0. However,
that's what I was going to say.
I do reckon that if we go out there and we play, like they're saying in the chat there, like the Celtic way, we do like to make it difficult for ourselves, then I'd probably say about 3-1. But all in all, I'm hoping for a pretty good performance. And like you say, Steve, we'll take a deflection off of Cedric Eaton's arse.
See we young boys of Bern, Paul, we didn't really dive in too much to them. We just sort of glossed over. As I say, when we look through it, they've got Cedric Eaton as the main striker. Their second backup striker's not too bad. But the key thing here is there's roughly about 4 guys that you've really got to take care of. Does that coupled with their form make you feel a wee bit more comfortable? Does that sum them up where they are heavily dependent on players, but even the players that they're heavily dependent on aren't doing it for them at this moment in time?
Aye. They're going to be heavily dependent on those same players rising to the atmosphere and being able to overcome that. Cedric Eaton has obviously experienced Parkhead before. He'll be no stranger to that. It's all been building towards this. I think it'll be a a game where we do convert these chances that we've not been necessarily converting for a good while. I think it'll all click tomorrow night. I think team-wise, it'll be the same team that started. I think he will show faith with Hatate, and I think it will be Engels, but I wouldn't be surprised likewise if he does start Bernardo. And as I say, the fact that we've been missing all these chances, I think that'll all click tomorrow night. I'm willing to go for it. I think 4-0.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think we'll get the job done. I think that everybody returning to fitness came at the right time for us. We've been creating a lot of chances, and as I say, this notion that somebody's due a doing. I don't think we'll mess about with the format. I don't think there'll be any room for experimenting here. I think it will very much be the strongest side that you expect to see. For me, it's going to be Kyogo up front. And I'd be, if I was a betting man, which I am, funnily enough, I'd be looking at Kyogo to be producing the goods here. And actually, I'm going to say Kyogo and Maeda. I've been really, really impressed by Maeda lately. I think it'll take care of itself. I'll take any scoreline. I'm going to be slightly lower than yourself. I'll go with 2-0. I think we'll be able to get it over the line and done. But I think it's going to need a massive, massive effort from every player on the pitch. And of course, it is going to need, we need to get that noise in the crowd. I think if we do that and bring it all together, something that's been missing from our last couple of games, whether that's been domestically and also in the Champions League, particularly looking at that Bayern game, I just felt that was so flat from ourselves on and off the pitch, from a fan base and from a player perspective. Important thing there was we showed that mentality where we went down, but we still dug something out yet. But this is a game where it's pretty clear. It's never been any more clearer that it is completely in our own hands. Win the game, qualify, pressure's off. You'll be getting into a game against Villa, who need to win to get through, but at the same time, that might just lift us again because, you know, as you say, put in a performance. The manager want to prove a point. Imagine being the team that stopped them getting into that automatic qualification. That'd be double nice, wouldn't it?
Of course it would.
Exactly. We've seen Celtic before years ago, albeit in different circumstances, playing down in England, and obviously there was more to play for then, and we rose to that occasion down at Ewood Park and Anfield and stuff, and it's something that we've not done for a long, long time. I would be happy enough that get the job done there tomorrow night, go there and put on a show.
Yep. And as the tagline says, to finish up, I think this would be a real coming of age for this Celtic side. The manager was asked, you know, what would it mean to qualify at the next round? He said, well, it's not something that I've not done. And I think as well, with the way that this new format goes, you fancy your chances because there's a lot of big teams who will be, yes, there'll be a lot of big teams that could be in that draw, but a lot that could be out on their arse as well. And, you know, the draw's favoured us so far.
Yeah,
another chance to get through and prove something. But it would really, for this Celtic side, it would beating young boys of Bern would turn Celtic into men in the Champions League. And it's been a long time since Celtic have been a team that have really stood up and been counted and really shown why we've been in the Champions League. Not through just because you get in through the route, the champions, you actually deserve to be there. And I think a win tomorrow, qualification, particularly against this backdrop of playing the 8-game format, it would just show you, you know, that we deserve to be there. And I also think as well, it would really, for us, show the benefits of this new format. There was a lot of questions about it.
Yeah,
because if, you know, if it was the last old format, would we be in this position? Probably not.
Listen, we spoke about it when we had Peter Grant on. Remember when we first seen the draw and the teams first came out? That was when we done the interview with Peter Grant and we spoke to him about it. And he highlighted that as well. He said that playing the same teams and having just a few extra games and stuff could be that little bit better because you're up against teams that are of a similar stature to yourself. When you go into groups and you're getting teams like Real Madrid and Liverpool and somebody else, and it's down to fairness. You sometimes look at some of the teams that the English clubs get drawn, and you're looking at it going, right, if we were in that group, we'd probably do a wee bit better, and it comes down to luck. But I think with this format, it comes down to basically where you're at. Basically, I think the way they've got the pots set out is actually pretty decent, and everybody's got a chance. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm quite happy
Well,
with it.
Optimistic from everybody on here. Optimistic for the comments. It says we'll see how it pans out tomorrow. Not long to wait now. But there we go. Paddy's 4-0 out his head.
Aye. I'm joining.
A win secures it. Confident of getting it happen. Yeah, that's it. You know, there's big events happening all over the world. In America, some guy that's got a mental suntan is claiming to make America great again.
Aye.
Well, Celtic, Brendan Rodgers have a chance to make Celtic great again tomorrow in the Champions League. I'm hoping for it to
Hell
happen.
yeah.
Of course, when it finishes, when it happens, we will be here to cover it. We won't be on, spoiler, we're not going to be on right away because Thursday morning I'm driving down to drop off a motor at 3:30, but Thursday night, no matter what the result is, be back here to talk about it. So until that time, take care of yourselves. God bless. And as always, hail, hail. See you all later and enjoy the game. Come on, you boys in green.